Hi, this is Karen, and as I spoke about on the page the other day, there are some questions that I get asked quite a few times from people about the other side, and I thought that given there are so many different interpretations out there, it might be a good idea to put some of those myths to rest once and for all. So to start off with, I came across a question that occurred the other day, and this happened on a video that was uploaded to YouTube. And the question was that they had felt for many months their mother around this particular person, but wondered whether she would still be around because they no longer had that kind of feeling that they were with them. Now, one thing that people need to understand with spirit is when they are a new spirit, they are very bright. In other words, they are the purest form of energy because they have just left a physical body and they are transitioning from our realm into the other side. Now, this transition can take months, unlike many people thinking that they can actually go over to the other side within a second. It can happen, but the energy itself is so strong that many people have actually noticed appliances play up. They may notice a feeling of electricity in the air. They may just have this feeling that someone's around them, and usually this is a great sign that you do have spirit present. So with that said, the response that I actually gave the person, and I feel that many people wonder, is that once the spirit has accustomed to the other realm, the energy isn't so strong, which means that they aren't as bright as, and that's not intelligence wise by any means, it's the energy begins to settle. And therefore, when there have been people who have actually experienced when spirit appear, they've actually mentioned there is a bright light. They notice the bright light fill the room. These types of things are very common. I see a lot of new spirits that are very bright. And I've learnt over many years of being a medium that with spirit, when they have this brightness about them, it's not just an aura, it's them. They are absolutely bright and almost glowing, if you want to put it that way. So there can be a full apparition or partial apparition, or they can just appear like an orb of light. So technically, once they are on the other side for quite some time, that light begins to fade. It doesn't have that brightness to it as much anymore. So technically, there's less energy that you might feel around you, but this does not mean that they do not come to visit. They most certainly do have the opportunity to come and visit. The only difference is their energy is now more connected to the other side than being in between, if that makes sense. Now, some of the questions I'm going to respond to now happen to be those that have been left on the Facebook page, the High Priestess Studio. So I'm going to address some of those as best I can in layman's terms. Now, one by Nikki Tanner says here, let me just bring this up. Do they go to family members who have also passed, or to the people who love them most in life? And will I see him when I get there one day? Well, most certainly you will see your loved ones on the other side when your time comes. And with the response to your first part of the question, do they go to family members who have also passed, or to the people? They basically can have both. You may actually find a lot of times that they come in pairs. You might even experience that there are group visitations, but don't expect them to just walk up and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hi, it's Mum," or anything to that nature. It's because unless you can actually see spirit, you may not even be the wiser. But sometimes your way of knowing that you have loved ones around is out of the blue. You'll have this sudden awareness or this thought of something that you can connect with in the past. It could be a memory, it could be something funny that you remember, it could be something that comes on the radio like a song, it could be a scent of a perfume, it could be a certain type of phrase that's said by somebody else. And spirit can also work through other people. On Christmas Day, my mother's favourite joke was, what do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? A stick. And she always said this joke, no matter how many times we heard it. Just the fact that the way she'd say it and that little laugh that she had at the end, we couldn't help but laugh. And that was Mum's signature, if you want to put it that way. She had us in stitches every time she'd say it, because we knew the pun, we knew the joke, but it was still funny every time she said it. And some people have that way about them. So that particular day on Christmas, my daughter hands me a bonbon and asks if I will break the bonbon with her. So I said, okay, no worries. The day had only just begun. I'd put the turkey in the oven and we break this bonbon, and inside of all the jokes, and one could say this joke is politically incorrect, is this joke. What do you call a boomerang that won't come back? Answer, a stick. And I had been feeling earlier that morning, I've got to prepare. I've got my other loved ones on the other side coming today. But this was her way of announcing her presence. So it was a beautiful gift in so many ways, just knowing that my mother was there at that time. And it was funny because my daughter's was actually born 1 year to the day of my mother's passing on the same date. So she's so much in so many ways like my mother, character-wise, attitude-wise, very stubborn. But to be born on the day of my mother's passing exactly 1 year later was in itself phenomenal. But getting back to this question, they actually visit everybody. And unlike us, we have to get in a car, we have to drive to the person's place. All spirit has to do is think of their loved one and they're there. That is probably the most exciting thing that they tell me. They can be anywhere they like. If they've never had the opportunity to travel or see the world, there's their opportunity in spirit to be anywhere they like, to go wherever they want, not have to pay for accommodation. It doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. But they basically do go and visit everyone, regardless of whether they love them the most. One thing I have found with spirit is there's no favourites, and that was quite surprising for me. It was actually a question that was put to me by one of the clients one day, and their father was present, and he had always, from what this client said, always favoured the youngest. No matter what, she just felt like she was never good enough, that she never did anything to make him proud. And he basically began telling me that he realised once he had crossed over, it was like the epiphany, the awakening, realised then how much he had missed out on his daughter, but it was not intended, because he loved her regardless. And he basically said, you wouldn't even be here seeing Karen if it weren't for me. And she said that is exactly how he would say things. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be going to the cinema. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be buying that dress. And she said that was his phrase, if it wasn't for me. And she knew that was her father speaking. Now, in regards of Veronica Dracopoulos, she says, do they stay with their blood family, and can they come into your dreams for you to be able to see them? And again, yes, they can go anywhere they like. They don't necessarily have to stay with blood family. If they have also had friends or loved ones, it's not as though they have to stay in one location like we do, under one roof, with a family. They can be independent. They can, see their loved ones. The many times that they talk about seeing friends and loved ones, and also pets when they are crossing over. I had one gentleman who, he really was a bit of a loner in this world, and the one thing he wanted to see was his dog. And here he was saying, I'm not crossing over anywhere until I see my dog. I need to see my dog to know that, I can cross over. And sure enough, this red setter comes running towards him. He was crying. It was actually recorded. I have no idea where the recording is, but I actually captured him saying, I can see him. And he said his name. I can't remember what it was. But he said it was a red setter, and it was there to take him over. It was there to help him to cross over, knowing that he was going to be with his best friend, and that best friend was his dog. Even though he had his loved ones there, many do actually say they keep their personality, nothing really changes, but they do have more of an awareness of what is going on and what they should be doing with their life. So those that left this world quite confused or depressed or mixed up, if you want to put it that way, have actually stated how much more clarity they have. And many have actually said, if only I had done things differently, if only I had spent more time with my family, if only, and no matter what, the funny thing is we say if only, and so does spirit. So that is something that is also part of the other side, which is very in common with what we have here. But they do actually visit those that have passed. They do speak of, catching up. I mean, there was one day I spoke to my grandmother and asked if she had found her sister on the other side, and she said, it's a big world. So she at that point had not seen her sister, but she wasn't upset. She was very, very happy, and knowing that confidence within herself that it will happen. It doesn't mean that, I've got to have it instantaneous. She was relishing and enjoying the fact that she was in paradise. That's what she described it as. Now, in dreams, if you have a dream of a loved one and that loved one, in that dream you are aware that they have passed over, that they really shouldn't be there, basically, that is a visitation. If you dream of a person who has passed over, and in that dream you are acting as though nothing's different, and you're not aware of it until you wake up, then that is merely a dream. So that's a way to tell whether you're having a visitation or not. A lot of times people have actually described that when they have been aware in their dreams of the other person who has been deceased, they actually look fantastic. That's the words they've described. They look so healthy, they look so vibrant, they look so young, they just look so well. So this is really important to take into account. Many people who usually have dreams who aren't aware during the dream that their loved one has passed over might get this feeling like they haven't seen them for a while, and then they wake up and they sort of have these thoughts of, oh, they seemed upset, they were crying, or they were depressed, or whatever it might be. And usually it's because that during the dream they're not aware that they are speaking to this one who has passed over. So that is a dream, and that's your indication that that may be you subconsciously wondering whether they are okay. So you might conjure up the thought or the image of them crying or being upset in some way, or depressed, or not looking well. So keep that in mind. If you in the dream know during that dream state that that person has crossed over, that is an actual visitation. If they happen to be upset and you're aware in the dream that they have crossed over, then that's your chance to ask them, what is wrong? What is it, that is wrong, that's making you so sad? And it's really important to keep a dream diary. So, for example, prepare your questions so that way, if you do encounter in a dream a loved one, you're armed with questions that you would like to ask them. So each night before you go to sleep, just revise those questions so that if by chance you do have that visitation, you have those questions to ask. Usually people wake up from a dream and they're aware during the dream that they've had this visitation, and they think, oh, why didn't I ask this, or why didn't I ask that? But if you have those questions already prepared, that's going to give you a better opportunity of being able to ask them at the time. Moving on to the next question. Lani Harris says, do people, I mean family members, know on the other side when someone is going to pass here? Absolutely. In fact, they are there to wait for them. In many cases, if you think about people who are, in nursing homes, or those who are having, deathbed visions, they usually say that they are seeing someone who many others in the room may not be seeing. They may speak of people who have been passed over for many, many years, and they are having these visitations. It could be an old friend, it could be someone who was a friend of the family, it could be, a person who may be a child to that person, or a husband, or a wife, or a parent. They absolutely do come to help them over. And sometimes what they do is they stand behind the person because they know that, they don't want to frighten them in any way. It is a transition. It's sometimes a difficult process because it means letting go of something they are familiar with and releasing their soul into the hands of the unknown. But it's always important anyway that those who are here should always give permission for those who are dying or in that transition phase of being okay to let go and to go into the arms of their loved ones on the other side. By reassuring them, you are actually giving that soul peace and comfort, and they're not anxious, they're not tied anxiously to those here wondering if they're going to be okay. If you say it is okay to go, you don't have to stay here, then they can freely release from that, and that crossing over process is less dramatic for them. Because those that don't get permission often find, I have actually had them say, I just feel like I have to stay here, that I cannot go because they're not okay. I need to know they're okay. And that's why I will get a lot of visitations, either to let their loved ones know that they're okay, or to just say, I'm with you, I'm thinking of you. But one thing I won't be able to say is if they are with you. So anyone who says to me, is my loved one with me now? I can't tell you that, and no one else can unless they are there. So if that person does a visitation with me, and I don't know many of these souls that do come to visit me, I can only assume their loved ones are sending them over. Some of them, they actually freeze up when I acknowledge them. They sort of don't. I don't know whether they just don't know what to say, or it's quite confronting to them in the fact that they have actually come to me and I've acknowledged them, and then they just don't say anything. So I have nothing to pass on. Sometimes you can't shut them up. I've had ones that have come through and talk, and they're so excited that, you know, everything else is coming out but what they want to say. They are just like, oh my God, I can't believe that you see me. Thank you so much. You know, I've even had one say, I love reading your daily affirmations. And I think, well, that's nice. Who are you? And mind you, this could be like a 3 o'clock in the morning visitation, and my eyes are burning by this stage. But they do come to me. So those who are saying to their loved ones, come, you know, go and see Karen and let her know, and she'll put up a post in the page. There are times I've had ones that have come through and they just clam up. So it may just be, as far as I'm concerned, either stage fright, if you want to put it that way, or just not knowing how to put the words. Sometimes when they have come to me, I don't know whether it is I can't even find how to describe it, but sometimes it's like they go to talk to me and nothing comes out. So I do see the frustration that comes over them. It's like they feel angry, and because they're angry, then it prevents them from communicating, and then they just go off. Sometimes they will come back, sometimes they won't. So I just say to them in those cases, look, if you are here to let a loved one who has asked you to come and see me know that you're okay, go to them, give them some comfort, give them that feeling that you're around. So if you have been one of these people who have asked your loved ones to come to me and nothing has gone up on the page, don't feel like they haven't come to me. Just know that maybe I have said to them, look, you need to go to your loved one if you can't communicate, or you can't, speak to me, because sometimes depending on how long the soul has been over, they're still trying to get used to a new body, which is it's no longer physical, it's spiritual, and they don't have a larynx like we do. So sometimes, they find it hard to form their words. In that case, I might say to them, look, do you want to use this device? And I might point to a spirit box if they want to try that. And sometimes they'll nod, sometimes they'll just shake their head no. But don't ever think that I'm not getting daily, nightly visitations, because if I were to count on one hand, I couldn't possibly. I get people from different cultures coming to see me. They can't talk English. I've had people just, show me what looks like a picture, but the picture it doesn't connect with me because of the fact that I don't know these people. So they must think that because their loved one might look at the page or read my posts or whatever, that I know them. And I don't know anyone personally. So that's a bit of a disadvantage, but an advantage at the same time. Okay, so going on to Joanne Dahl. how come majority of people can't see or communicate with spirits on the other side? Well, that's a really good question, Joanne, because this is something I can't really answer. I didn't study this. I didn't go to any, school or do any course online or whatever. It's something that's been with me. I guess it's like asking, okay, how come not every single person is a gifted artist? How come not every single person is colorblind? How come not every single person can sing or play a piano without having any practice? Everyone is different. Everyone has unique gifts. Mine just happens to be one that allows me to see spirit and to hear spirit. And the funny thing is, when I was a child, I was hit in the right ear with a throwdown. And I don't know whether you remember throwdowns. They was like firecracker night back then. And it basically damaged my eardrum. So the funny thing is, that ear is where I hear them the strongest. I don't know why. I can't answer why. But even before that, I was hearing them. But it's like wearing a hearing aid. I don't wear hearing aid in that ear, but I can hear well. It's like my hearing has doubled in my left ear when I'm talking to people. But if spirit are on my right side, they're a lot more clearer to me. If they move around, I find it like their voice is cut out. It's like if a person, if you cover up one ear and you've got a person going over to another side of you on that, area where that ear's covered up, so to speak, it might be muffled, it might be unclear, especially if they're whispering, because you've got to remember too that with spirit, they speak below 10 decibels. And we usually speak at a level of over 20 to 25 or so, depending on each individual, because, some people are louder than the others. But it is something that I guess I really don't have an answer to that. It is just a talent or a gift. And I have, over the years, embraced it because of the fact that I think, well, when I was growing up, it was comforting to me because I had so many friends that other people didn't have, and it did feel kind of special because, I've got these friends and other people can't even see them, so I feel like, they're secret friends, or, I just felt really blessed, if you want to put it that way. But at the same time, it was hell because I grew up where kids would sort of look at me or tease me or just avoid me because they thought either I was talking to myself or, I was just not completely with it, if you want to put it that way. And I used to joke around. I used to not take anything really serious because of the fact that, my friends didn't take much serious. And I did end up in high school with a group of friends, but even with them, things were ever changing. And there's only been like probably one or two that I really do keep in touch with since then. But it's, there was nothing that they saw in common with me. There was a little bit of an interest with one of them, but overall they couldn't see anything. So I learnt growing up to pay attention to the reactions of other people. If I saw someone or something and I looked at around and no one else seemed to acknowledge, I would just sort of like not say anything until they were out of sight, or they were the people that were with me were either walking off or what have you. So in relation to that, it was difficult. It was so difficult. And relationships, don't even go there. It was really hard having relationships and feeling like you've got no, like you don't have any space. You always have someone there. It's like having a roommate. When you're married, you've even got someone who's just walking in on you in your most private, intimate times, or you've got people around just all the time. And I'm used to that. I am absolutely used to it, but it isn't easy. And there are so many people who say, oh, I would love to be able to do that. Maybe it's like some places, they're great to have a holiday at, but you wouldn't want to live there. So I can understand it'd be like a person who is a gifted artist. And just on that note, there are people who say, oh, well, if you're given a gift like this, you should be doing it for nothing. You should not be charging anybody a cent because this is a God-given gift. Well, that could be said the same for people who are artists. Why should they make any money off their art if that's the only thing they're doing as a line of work? They have to live, unfortunately, and we're in a day and age where, you have to live somehow. We still eat. Doesn't mean that because you can see and speak to spirits that you have no requirement for food or nourishment or clothing or a roof over your head. Somewhere you've got to have that money to be able to afford to have that or to live. So to those that say, oh, you should be doing this for nothing, I ask you, what would you do if you had no other means of income? Would you not expect to be paid for your time? I mean, sometimes this can be emotionally draining. Sometimes this can be exhausting, and that's why a lot of times I don't want to know the person's private life. I don't want to know why they're wanting a reading. I don't want to know their business. I need to be disconnected as much as possible to my clients because of the fact if I get emotionally involved, how can I possibly go and do the next reading? Some people, it's like you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. And I try to be as generous as I can, but I also have to be realistic. This is a time where many people will want to be your friend because you can read for them. Many people will want to talk to you only because they can ask you questions. So I'm not stupid. I know how it works. I know that there are people out there who, it's like a person, if they're friends with a plumber, they expect them to give them free plumbing. But it doesn't work that way. You have to live. And, what do you do? So going down to the next question here. All right, Sandra Grunsel asks, what do they do on the other side? And if I had a dime for every time I was asked that, Sandra, but I have asked Spirit, and Dad, for example, he was actually in this world in a wheelchair, and he actually loves dancing. He told me that my mother has 2 left feet. So with that said, they do anything they like. They speak of dancing, they talk of singing, they visit, they go places. I guess anything they want to do, there is no limit. There is no monetary thing. So I guess in the next life, I will probably be obsolete because unless it comes down to communicating with people here, I don't know how that will work. But obviously there will be no money or value of money or anything of that nature, because basically the saying goes, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, you return to what you came from, and we're energy regardless. Some people say you go back to the ground. Yes, your body goes back to the ground because we were made from dust, if you want to put it that way, as they say in the Bible. But our spirit is not dust. It is energy, and energy is incredible. It can manipulate a lot of things. It can also manipulate recordings. I've had cases where I've recorded a spirit saying one thing, and I snuck a recording one day. They weren't aware I was recording, and I thought I'll put that up so that way it helps others who want to hear spirit voice. I didn't ask for permission of that spirit to record them, so I did the wrong thing. As it turned out, I actually deciphered what that spirit said and put it up, and it said when it was played back after uploading it, it was something completely different. Nothing like what I had written down of deciphering what it had said or annotating what it had said. It was completely different. So they can manipulate a lot of things because they're pure energy, but they can do anything on the other side. All they basically have to do is blink, if you want to put it that way, and they can be right beside the person. My dad says we're a whisper away, so all I have to do is say, Dad, come and visit me, and he'll come and visit me. And this is where many people will have visitations from their loved ones. They may not always feel them around, so don't expect things to be shaking about you, or flashes of light, depending on what your loved one wants to do. You could say, for example, if there is a bush out the front that is supposed to bloom with flowers and it never blooms, you could say to your loved one, give me a sign, make a flower appear on this tree that's never bloomed a flower. And one day you might walk out there and see this flower on a tree that has for years and years and years stood barren with no flowers whatsoever. That happened to me once when I was wondering where the hell my grandfather had gotten to, because for years and years and years he never visited me. And I thought, okay, has he got the pooey on or something? Didn't visit me. And I asked if he could make a flower appear on this bush out the front, and that I knew was supposed to bloom with flowers, but it never did. In all the time, in probably 20 years of being at that particular place, it never once had a flower on it. But it was supposed to be a plant that had flowers. I can't think of the name of it, but anyway, that's irrelevant. A week later, I casually strolled to the letterbox, not even paying attention, and I grabbed the mail, turned my back to walk in, and then I thought, oh my God, I turned around because I had subconsciously caught the vision of the flower. I turned around and that whole bush had flowers all over it. And I knew I had asked my grandfather to show me that he was with me by putting the flowers of a flower. I didn't ask for that many, but just, let a flower bloom on that bush that has been sitting there barren for 20 odd years. And sure enough, there's this flower, but amongst many flowers. So that gave me comfort. And it wasn't until about a year or so ago, I had a visitation from him in my dream. And it was more astounding at the fact that not only that morning did I have a visitation, but his daughter, my aunt, also had a visitation. And she was, I mean, talk about the biggest skeptic you can put on the face of the earth. Always laughed or, oh, okay, rolled her eyes. So it sort of was quite uncomfortable talking with some family members about what I would see and hear and so on. You sort of learn to shut up about it around them. But she would roll her eyes, and this day when I rang her and I said, oh, guess who I had a visitation from, because it had been years, and I just had to tell them. I said, I had a dream of Pa. And she said, oh my God, I was just telling Craig, which is her son, that I had a dream of Dad this morning. And I said, was he wearing a jumper? And he had this pale blue jumper on, a V-neck jumper with a white shirt underneath. And he was outside looking absolutely healthy. He had actually passed from cancer that riddled right through to the bone. He had it right through the bones. It started off in the lungs and just went completely right through his body, into his bones. And he died like almost under 50 kilos. And this is a man who was nearly, 7 foot tall. So my aunt said how healthy he looked in her dream. And also the fact that, he was wearing a jumper with a white shirt underneath. And I said, what colour was the jumper? And in my visitation, it was a pale baby blue. And she said it was a pale baby blue colour. And I said, that was a visitation. She said, in my dream, she said, I only thought, it's been so long since I've seen you. So there was still that connection of the fact that there was a visitation that she had, in the knowledge that she hadn't seen him for so long. But in that particular dream, she knew that something wasn't right, that there was a reason for her not seeing him for so long, and this is her father. So that's where, if you have dreams like that, or in the dream you're aware that person is passed over, that's a visitation. And I remember in that dream, that visitation dream, saying to my grandfather, where have you been? And he just gave me this look like, oh my God, this is a visit. And I hugged him because I just didn't know when I would next see him again. But later that afternoon, I decided to have a bit of a nap. And in my nap, who should visit me again? My grandfather. So 2 times in one day I had this visitation from him. Since then I've not had another visitation. Probably he's scouring the world, having a look at everything, and just having a great time, because he used to love to go to the horses and the greyhounds and everything like that. So who knows what he's doing. But it was lovely. It was a lovely visitation. So this is an exciting thing, really, when you think about spirit, how they just, it's like, if you think about not a care in the world, what it would be like, that's what spirit's like. But they do worry about us. So just know that if you are wondering about your loved ones on the other side, there is nothing to worry about with them. The ones that you should be worrying about are you here, how you're dealing with things, how you're thinking about what you have to plan for your future here, and what you're going to leave behind about yourself in relation to what memories are you going to create for your loved ones. So the last question I have is, do they see the future for us, and this is from Leslie Valou. And I guess in a way there have been times where spirit have actually told me things. I just got yes. So they do. They see things. I've had spirits who have said to me that I will not suffer death. So I don't know what they mean by that. Hopefully they're telling me that I will go in my sleep when I die. They have told me when I will die. I'm never going to tell that to anybody, because that is what they've told me, and I don't read for myself. So this is what they've shared with me. So I'm not going to tell anybody, but let's just say everyone will know when it happens. And it won't be at my hand anyway. But they did say that I won't suffer death. And I guess in a way, when I have seen people who are in the process of passing over, like one example, a nursing home I went to, this particular lady who was in the room beside my grandmother, it was so weird. I don't even know what possessed me to go past her room, because I had no reason to go past her room. My grandmother's room was before hers. But something told me, go past that room next door. And I did, and I just looked in. And I could see what appeared to be like a balloon sitting above this sleeping woman's head. And yet the balloon had a face and was looking at me and smiling. And when I looked a bit closer, it was the woman. It was her face. And I said to my grandmother, has she gone off her food? And she said, how did you know? And I said, because she's leaving her body. And she said she has actually for the last couple of days. She's not eating. And that's one of the signs of the, when the larynx or the spirit is becoming out of alignment with the body. There is no longer the feeling of being hungry. There's, because spirit don't have an appetite, if you want to put it that way. So technically, this woman was leaving her body before my eyes, but it wasn't like straight away. She was taking her time and holding on, and I feel that this was to see her loved ones. And I said to my grandmother, her kids coming to see her today or tomorrow? And she said, well, they had actually called, and they were speaking with my grandmother, and she said that they were expected to be in either that afternoon or evening. And I said, well, that's what she's holding on for. And as it turned out, she did. After they left, then she left. And it was incredible, because like with each progression, I could see that soul descending. At one point, it looked almost like a spider's web sitting on top of this funny looking, almost jelly-like substance, which looked like, the only way I can describe it is like a balloon. And that was the first time I'd actually seen a soul leaving the actual physical body while it was still alive and breathing. So it was amazing. It really was. But she was happy. And that's what took me back, was seeing how happy that soul was. And then the next day when I went in, before going in to see my grandmother, I just sort of like stuck my head around the corner, looked into the room, and I could see her soul standing over near the window. And she turned and smiled, and she said, I'm free. And yet her body wasn't in the room. And I said to my grandmother, I think her name was Ida, has Ida passed away? And she said, yes, she has. And I said, she just said she's free. And she said, that would be right. She would be free, because she was a prisoner in her own body. So that was beautiful, and that was her way of also giving, I guess, to my grandmother, who had not long after that passed away herself, giving her that confidence to let go. And I'll never forget the day that my grandmother left. I could actually see the silhouette of my mother standing over near, not so much at the doorway, but just off the doorway in the wall. It looked like a dome shape, and my mother's silhouette was standing there. And I said to my grandmother, "Mum's here." And my grandmother at that point was sleeping, but a smile came on her face. And I don't know what happened, but I looked away momentarily, and I felt this incredible peace come over my whole body. And I knew that my grandmother was holding me to say goodbye. And I looked at her, and she had stopped breathing. Her soul had departed. And the family were there, but I was right at her bed head. I was right beside her when she had her last breath, but I didn't see the last breath. But I felt her arms embrace me, and the peace was absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So never think that when a loved one goes that they don't have this immense peace. It was something that I will never ever in my life forget, is that peace that enveloped me that day when my grandmother left. It was sad to say goodbye, but I felt a peace that stilled me. It actually brought so much calmness, and I knew this is what she wanted, and I knew she was happy because she was going off with my mother. So my mother had come to collect her, and the funny thing is, a few days before, she was telling the family, major skeptics, that my mother was talking to her, and she kept pointing to these white cockatoos outside, saying, "What's she doing out there?" And it's funny because everywhere we go, there are these white cockatoos that seem to, in pairs, come down and be around family. If there is a barbecue, if there is a gathering with family, there are cockatoos that are there, and they appear. They just appear. Cockatoos are everywhere, but these particular ones seem to come in pairs, and I believe that in some way they're also signs from my mother and my grandmother that they're together and they're visiting. So it's beautiful. But anyway, I hope that in some way I've given you all something to think about, and to know that there is nothing to fear about dying except death itself. We create our own fears. It's like a person can scare themselves. If they panic enough about something, they can frighten themselves. So never fear it, but don't go searching for it, because someday it will find you when it's your time. And when that happens, your loved ones will be there. And I can guarantee you that. So have a lovely, happy new year. Embrace 2017, because 2017 is a new beginning. This year has to close its book. It has to close its chapter, because it was the ending. And this is why this year there was so many crossing overs, so many passing to the other side. People that many of us were quite surprised to hear about, celebrities and so on. So next year there are going to be a lot of new beginnings. There's also going to be like a new world, from what I'm being told. And I'm not saying the end of the world is nigh, because nobody knows that except God. But I was actually told by Spirit there's going to be some major changes, big changes, that is going to give everybody a new beginning in some way. So I feel quite excited because of the fact that they do say this is a new start. This is like a new slate where everyone has the chance to wipe that old slate clean and begin new. And Spirit are actually encouraging all of us to make peace with one another. One thing they keep saying is just be peaceful. You're here to bring peace and create positive, beautiful memories. Make positive changes. Instead of whinging about other people, do something that's going to change the situation in a positive way. Bitching and moaning about somebody not doing this or not doing that is not going to fix anything. So they say you can make that difference. So start within yourself. Anyway, I'm going. I thank you all for those who have sat through this and listened, but I do really hope that this has given you something to think about and given you the answers that you need at this time. So take care. Bye for now, and have a great, wonderful, safe New Year.